the way that he wrote about it emphasized as well that this way you don't have to prepare complicated sequences to push them into, because you're getting exactly the same effect just by dancing ahead of them.
Mm-hmm.
But and also you can use your own judgment as to when you want it to be a funny failure that turns out really well, or something like that, right? I mean, you can sort of control the tone of the outcomes of things. So it is very much a sophisticated method of control.
Uh, I'd like to ask, what's your position on this? Are you presenting it as a technique, or
Me?
you're
Oh, okay.
yes?
I talked about it as a way, as effectively a deceptive means of depowering other people at the table. It is a technique, but I wanted to point out that a lot of people, like Gareth, gave themselves credit for not railroading
Mm-hmm.
when they do it.
Okay.
And I was saying actually it is merely a sophisticated form of railroading. And to contrast it with play, in which the actions and consequences take the plot, the emerging plot, somewhere that nobody is controlling.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's what when I talk about emergent plot due to all of us role playing together, that's usually what I'm talking about. But a lot of people are expert at this technique, and it's impossible to clarify to them what I'm talking about. They will insist that they let the story evolve, that they say, I wing it. So the story is pure. It's produced during play. And it may be produced during play, but there's only one person producing it. The other people might as well just be sitting there silently. It's a little bit like, how an improv comedy team will take material from the audience and they'll turn it into the jokes that they're good at. That's very much what we're talking about.
So it remains illusionist play, regardless, and the only difference is when you decide to produce the exact means by which the story goes that way.
Right, and since the players are basically feeding you the raw meat for it, it's a superior illusion because it looks as though they actually did a thing. And one of the things that I've found is, especially with Gregory, are you hearing us? Because this is for you.
Yes, I'm hearing.
Because this is when I play sorcerer and people see me play sorcerer, they think this is what I'm doing. Because it's the only way they know for everything the characters do to be so consequential. It's the only way they know for that to happen. So I must be doing it. And since they can't really see me do it, they think I'm amazing. They think I'm an incredible master of this, where I'm not doing it. So
it's interesting because with my own player, they actually really can feel that I'm not doing it when I'm not doing it, which is not easy.
Right.
But they can feel it, and then I told you about that. We realize that they don't know what to do when this happens. Like, oh, you're not doing intuitive continuity, we will not know what should I do. So we have this dilemma, and they're like, shit. Generally, the quote I have every time is, my life is falling apart. You
remember when we played?
I don't know what. Yeah,
Gregory?
that's what I felt.
Yeah,
too.
I remember you. Just to tease Gregory for a second, which is not fair because he's awesome, but there came a point where he was asking his demon what to do, what it thought he should do as the sorcerer, and I told him I was playing the demon, and I told him. And Gregory realized that was the most insane and awful thing he could possibly imagine, and he suddenly realized the game master was not going to take care of him.
Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah. So,
and there's something interesting I want to to tell because I felt this way like the first time we played Sorcerer together, and some of my friends watched the videos, and at that moment we all had the same feeling that I had to revise this feeling because I rewatched the video, so I want to talk about this. In the first time, I don't know why, but I had the impression that you weren't allowing me to role play the character, when in fact, and I've discussed this with some friend that had the same impression on first watch, like, but is always interrupting you. You know, and when I watched the second time, I realized that in fact it was the contrary. Like I was explaining why I've chosen this in the creation time, and you are always saying, "Yeah, okay, but forget this. Just tell me what you do," you know. And it was impossible. I was like, no, I was trying to explain why I have chosen this in my kicker, in my in my background, in anything. You're like, oh, yeah, okay, forget it. Just tell me what to do. And I
read it already, Gregory. You don't have to tell me, right?
Yeah. And what's interesting is that most people I've told that watch the video had the same feeling, and I had to rewatch it to say, now I understand it.
That's a really interesting point. Menu, does that seem to be sort of helping get a better idea of the... Now, let's go back to your thing. You have these 2-player characters. Let's see if I remember correctly. They have like these I don't even remember the character specifically, but they were only a tween. How old were they? 10?
13.
Okay, right. Only
You mean the players or the PC?
The players, right.
Yeah.
The characters were very much what you get with young teen, tween players. And the setting quickly became a little more lighthearted, right? A little more cartoony, satirical feeling, right? If I recall. And tell me how things went.
Okay. Just one quick question first, to conclude with the background prep. So there was nothing wrong or problematic with that, with doing it in an impromptu way like that. It's like it's not when you do it; it's whether it's real, right? Or
arguably speaking, it's always impromptu, no matter when you do it, right? I mean, if you don't have, the zombie infested pit, and then you do, well, it had to be impromptu when you did it, right? Even if it was 5 years ago or 3 weeks ago or whatever.
Okay. So the key is that it's something that's there, and you don't change it willy-nilly. It's something everybody can work off of.
Well, I think a good way of looking at it is if you conceive it as a danger, and then the outcome of the way they interact with it, you're not going to get something you like or want, then you can shift it into being not a danger after all. You know, you could shift it into being I think what I'm saying is that the role of the thing as adversarial or as whatever it is that you have in mind, that if you don't have anything in mind, you just throw it in there as a place and then see what they do, and then then that's going to be, what the thing was.
And that's totally fine.
Well, say that again?
And that's totally fine.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you do that, then you're still maintaining control over their actions. You're if you're controlling the outcome of what they do, then they're not really doing it. They're saying things, but you're the one doing what the characters actually accomplish. Does that make
sense? So the key then is to not do intuitive continuity. The key to having the good prep is that there's a consistency to it. Like you make it, and then it's
I keep using the word honoring it, right?
Okay.
You honor what you came in with for this thing. You're going to say, this thing is not just a question mark waiting to be shaped by how they interact with it and by how I feel that needs to go, but it's going to have some qualities. I mean, the most obvious example, of course, is that you made it up a year ago and you wrote down all the details and all the rest. But I don't necessarily mean you have to do that. Even if you did just make it up, how they interact with it is now going to depend on what they do and the system that we are using with its consequences that we're going to honor. That's the. It's almost like it's the anti-fudge. It's well, I don't mean the game, but the technique, the anti-fudging technique. It's a very, it's taking that, fudging a roll, to where you roll the dice and the players don't see it, and you just kind of decide how you want this roll to go, and that's what it is. And how many role-playing texts, like behind both of you at this very minute, the ones whose shells I can see. How many role-playing texts actually explicitly tell you to do this to be a good game master? Right? Legions.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And I'm saying that I'm talking about techniques that are sort of the philosophical opposite of that is what I'm trying to talk about, what I'm trying to express as a possibility that we can do. In many ways, fudging is a very concrete example, a very specific pinpoint example of intuitive continuity. Just pertaining specifically to a resolution. Although, as Skarka was describing it, he was talking about entire backstories, entire situational, setups, whole scenarios. With that in mind, let's look at what you did rather than try to describe it in the abstract, because that's very difficult and not helpful, maybe. So, did they get into some sort of pickle where they had to fight their way out, or?
Yeah. So, the way I introduced them to the problem was I had one of their siblings came running in saying, "Oh, the cute creature's in trouble. And I can't help him, and there's a zombie or something." And so, of course, they wanted to save the cute creature. And so they went into the graveyard, and the creature was kind of trapped in this tomb, and a zombie was trying to get it. So they had they were able to they cast a spell on the zombie. So they had some trouble fighting it. They had some bad rolls. And then they cast a spell on the zombie so it would go eat somebody in the village they didn't like. Which was cool. I mean, I never thought of doing that. And the first thought that came into my mind from years ago, oh well, you can't cast charm on a zombie or something. I was like, no, let's do it. It sounds awesome.
Of course. I mean, screw that, obviously.
Yeah. And then the zombie was so the zombie left. They had the cute creature, and then one of them, I forget, it wasn't my niece but her friend, I think, said, "Wait a minute, what if there's other people in the village besides Sir Edulus was the one they had him go after? What if the zombie eats some of the other villagers, right? And we have like our sibling is over there and so on." So then they wanted to rush to catch up the zombie, and they caught up to the zombie so at that point I was like, okay, when are they going to catch the zombie in time? And so let's make some rolls. And they got to it in time, and then where was it going to be? Well, I did, at this point, that's the question. Was like, well, let's have it right outside the village, right, to add suspense.
When you say right outside the village, was it like before it got to anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they had some good roles.
Okay, let's stop right there for a sec.